Ready? Looks like you're ready. Click here to start streaming. Oh,
Bit of a delay.
okay. I never did it like this before. Let me start over, and I might be able to edit that out. Can you see it, Barry?
Now I see it.
Okay, good. So places, everybody. And action. Wow, what a snafu. This is like the 6th time I'm doing this, and I still haven't gotten it perfected, but hopefully people who wanted to watch this are actually able to watch it on the channel at YouTube. So anyway, I'm Billy. I sound like a real ditz. I am the host of Show and Tell, the Vintage Knitting Podcast. And because the holidays are upon us, I have invited back some of my vintage knitting guests who have appeared on my show previously. And one at a time, they're going to go around robin and introduce themselves, and they're going to tell us where they're from. Look in the show notes after the show for all of their contact information. So, all right, you already know. Erika, you're up first.
Yes, so hi everybody, I'm Erika from Sweden in a small town called Västervik.
Okay, Jessie, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessie and I was born and raised in Southern California and I'm currently living in Anaheim.
Katy.
Yeah, I'm Katy and I come from Germany. I live in a town called Wuppertal.
Thank you. Okay, I'm all bollocksed up here because I got like multiple screens. I really need multiple computer screens. Now I understand why my son has this monitor and that monitor. I have my screen split, but it keeps bouncing back and forth. I'm so sorry. JKLM. Michele.
Hi, I'm Michele and I live in England in the UK, and I live by the estuary near Southend-on-Sea. So I'm a seaside girl.
Sara. Sara?
No, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Sara, and I live also live in Stockholm, in Sweden, in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden.
And Sophie.
Hi, I'm Sophie and I live in England in a small village called Hartley in northern Kent.
Where is Kent in relationship to where Michele lives?
Quite close, actually.
Oh, is it? Is it? So I had said before we actually started recording, but I noticed that even though I did not send out a memo, that a bunch of us are wearing burgundy, the new red, evidently. I mean, since when did this become like the holiday color? I guess it's the vintage. I don't know. Michele is old school and she's got her red. And Katy, I'm not sure. It's red or it's...
Yeah, it's red.
It's red.
It's a darker red.
Okay. They are maybe truer to form. I can wear red, but I haven't. Yeah, my red sweater is not so holiday-ish. Anyway, welcome back. I'm so happy to see all of you. I can't believe the last time some of us gathered was April. And prior to that, it was last December. And I really think this is a fun thing to do. I hope that the audience enjoys it as much as I am. But since it's been a while since I've seen some of you, I guess we should talk about what we're currently working on, and then maybe we'll come back and talk about what we have worked on. So let's go in the same order. And Erika, I'll let you kick it off.
Oh, such an honor to be the first one out. I feel like I'm sitting in a pile of things over here because last time I mentioned I can't work on one thing at the same time or just one thing. I do plenty of things. So I'm working on another holiday jumper, but in a new color, blue, but with some snowflakes.
Pretty.
I made one in a very, very Christmas red that I really liked, but I'm planning on making one with long sleeves because when it gets cold in Sweden, as you know, Sara, we want long sleeves. These are pretty, but yeah, need a bit warmer things.
I'm
Some
long
Christmas
sleeves
presents.
all year long.
Oh, you are?
My wedding gown, I got married in August. My wedding gown had long sleeves. I don't have pretty arms.
Beautiful, beautiful. No, but you can have beautiful sleeves. Doesn't have to be about
Right.
the arm.
Jessie, what you got?
So this year I told myself just focus on presents for everyone else. And I usually do a Christmas sweater of some sort. And I wasn't going to, but I got too tempted. And I came across this really adorable pattern for a very simple 1940s jumper. It's called California Basque. Here's a picture of it. Just a super cute striped jumper. And I knew also I had some just leftover yarn in my stash that's been sitting around for years. And I thought, oh, it'd be a good stash busting project. And then it turned out that I had some nice shades of green and red and white. And so I ended up making a Christmas jumper that I am now sewing together. So she's almost done, but it's inside out. So that's what it's looking like.
Nice.
I
Very nice.
used a burgundy. Thank you. I went with the burgundy instead of a regular red, and 2 shades of green that go with it and white. And I have the opposite problem from you ladies. Living in Southern California, it's rare that it's cold enough to need like a sweater per se. So I made this one. It's fingering weight, so it's nice and lightweight. And I made the sleeves extra short so that hopefully, even if it's like 70 degrees on Christmas or 75 or 80, I can wear it without sweating and I'll have something festive and nice. But I actually had a question. I wanted to pick everyone's brains. So it's not the end of, not too bad and not too noticeable, I don't think. But I had a really bad problem with color bleeding when I was soaking it before blocking it. It's probably hard to see, but my white stripes got a bit of the red. So they just look a tiny, tiny bit dingy and pinkish now. And I was looking up online ways to avoid that. And I tried soaking, it happened on the front piece and I was like, oh, that's not great. So for the back, I tried soaking it in vinegar and cold water, and that was lovely. That worked great. But then I wanted to also, after that, soak it in my regular detergent, but then it started to bleed again. So does anybody know any tips and tricks to prevent bleeding?
No, not me, fortunately. Do you wash it in cool water?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not hot water.
Yeah, definitely cold water. And I have some very gentle eucalyptus detergent meant for wool. And it's what I use for all my projects. And I haven't had an issue before. So I think it's just this particular red yarn. But anyway, no worries. That's what I've been working on.
There's a paper that you can put into a washing machine that should soak up the color. I don't know if this would work, but maybe. They are pretty good. You can also use them for regular washing things.
Is it called color catcher? Is it something called color catcher? Yeah, I think I've heard of that. Actually. Yeah.
I had a sweater that I knit all in one color, navy blue. And when I soaked it to block it, the water was blue, really dark blue, and it just kept bleeding and bleeding. And I kept putting gallon after gallon of water until I got to the point where I contacted the dyer and I said, like, what do I do? And she said, oh, it must be the blue. That's the problem color for that particular dyer. So she had me send the sweater back to her and she did something to it. But I think it's like a process. It's just like a treatment, and there's some chemical, maybe caustic. I'm not sure, but there's something that makes the dye stick to the yarn. So I don't really know, but you might ask the maker of that yarn, like what they suggest you do. It's horrible when it ruins a sweater. I mean, luckily mine was a solid color, but it's really horrible if you're doing something white that has like a red trim and the red bleeds into the white after you do all that work. Ugh.
It's always a risk, isn't it, when you use lighter colours with bright colours? Definitely.
Well, in her case, it's very nominal, but you don't want it to bleed. You want the color that you want, especially like me. I don't know if you saw my last episode. I bought a pair of shoes and I want to knit something to match those shoes. And if the colors change and it's not going to match the shoes, like, what did I spend all that time?
In hindsight, I suppose what you should have done is just wash the wool. Have you like taken a sample of each colour and just washed it to see what happened? Like maybe knitted a swatch.
Yep.
But it's easy to say that once you've done it, though. But once you've we all do the same thing, don't we? We come to the end of a project and then you realise, oh, if only I'd have done something right before I even started it. But yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's see what Katy's working on. I'm sure it's something on her needles.
Yes. I am working on a Cossack style coat that is published in Stitchcraft.
Oh, nice.
And I was inspired to finally try this by Sophie, who's actually wearing her version of this coat. Mine is not finished yet, but I've tried to put everything as much together as possible. I've knitted all the parts in the gray. I struggled a little bit with the center part. First, I chose another color, but I didn't like it when I saw them together. And now it's a very dark brown. On the front, it would look this way, but here the parts are still missing. And I would like to do the whole set with the hat and also the muff, or however it is pronounced. In Germany, it would be a muff.
Muff in English, we would say muff.
Okay.
Like puff, muff.
Yeah. I think it was a really challenging pattern because I had no measurements. Just I had to calculate and see what was working, but I finally found the right tension for the gray part. And I just started like Sophie with the back and looked what kind of bust size I would need, and then tried to fit the rest of it. I'm very curious how it will look when it is finished, and I've bought enough yarn of the brown color to add a skirt eventually.
Thanks. Before we move on, let me just tell everyone that one of the viewers, Carol Tidy, wrote for Jessie, most modern dyes are acid dyes, so vinegar or citric acid will help stop the bleeding. Citric acid is less pungent, she said. Try and find a neutral detergent for washing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm also going to look for those. What was it called? The item that you can put in the washing machine that helps to absorb the dyes?
Color catcher.
Color catcher. I'm going to look for that too. But yeah, citric acid, that's a great idea because that was my problem. The vinegar seemed to work, but it was so smelly.
Okay, Michele, let's see.
Right, so I've knitted myself quite a few things this year. So my husband gets a bit fed up because he says, when are you going to knit me a sweater? So I've been knitting a few sort of Aran this year. I've been knitting something quite complex for myself, but I wanted something a bit simpler. So he had a look for some patterns, and it's not vintage. It's probably a sort of 80s pattern, but it's that one. It's the men's like a traditional Aran jumper. So, but I don't think it's going to be as baggy on him though, because the thing is, if I go for a really big size, sometimes I've knitted in the past something for him and it's been massive and too big. But anyway, so I've started the back, and I don't know if you can see that. It's quite a simple Aran. It's just like a 10 stitch panel so there's a repeat of the same panel throughout. So it's quite simple, which I like. So I've sort of progressing. I've got past the armholes. So I should hopefully finish the back by this weekend. And then I can do the front. So yeah, and the wool I've used, the yarn, is a blue-faced Leicester, 100% wool. And I've never used that yarn before, but I thought,
Neither have
I'll try
I.
it. But it's really lovely. It really is lovely to use, and it's so soft. It's really nice. So he'll probably enjoy wearing that. I just hope it doesn't fit him too snugly. But it's really deceiving because when you knit, I'm not knitting on circular needle, I'm knitting on just small needles. So it's all bunched together. So once I've actually finished this, I'll be able to, and I can block it. So it's bound to stretch. So hopefully we'll get the right measurement at the end, but he won't get it in time for Christmas. Probably like maybe January, February time, but I don't think he'll mind. But I did buy
He won't.
No, I did buy quite a bit of it actually. So if there's enough left over, I might knit him a hat to go with it. So yeah, it's hard to know how much yarn to buy, because even though it tells you so much on the pattern, sometimes you just don't know, do you? It can differ. So I bought 14 skeins, like of 100 gram skein. So I think we've got enough. I think I'm on the 3rd skein now on the back, so I don't think we're going to use all of those. Maybe I'll have enough to knit myself a sweater.
Oh, that would be cute. His and hers.
Good. Yeah, or put it with something else, another yarn maybe. Who knows? But yeah, so that's what I'm working on.
Thanks, Michele. Sara?
I'm working on something small, just to brighten up the dark evenings and days of Sweden. A balaclava in light green and wool and mohair yarn with glitter to make it a bit festive as well. But I'm planning on soon moving on to a dress. In this book, The Shetland Trader by Gudrun Johnston, is her mom's old designs that she upgraded a bit for the modern age. So I will show you, I have ordered the yarn. I'm mixing 2 patterns, I think. This is dark, you might not see it, but you can see the Fair Isle part in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I would use this, the shape from another one. It's almost the same, but it doesn't have. It has a kind of bell sleeves and a bit of A-line shape. So that's why I'm making soon. I will start by Christmas.
Okay, thank you. And Sophie?
I'm making a 1930s jumper, of course. It's part of an Instagram knit along, and it's from a Minerva pattern, being knit top down. This is actually the back because the others are on waste yarn at the moment, the other stitches. But it has a nice raglan shape, and it's going to look like that.
What's the reason that you're not knitting in the round?
Because the pattern doesn't tell you to. And
Okay.
I don't mind seaming up. Plus I can make sure that the pattern matches exactly. that the stripes match exactly. Otherwise, I'd have to put in a faux seam, I think, to make there not be a little bump.
Oh, a little job. Oh, that's the reason. Okay. So I guess it's up to me now, right? Okay. After doing that project that took me 4.5 months, I'm doing like a palette cleanser. This is just knitting up so quickly.
Oh yeah, that's your latest, isn't it?
So I'm knitting on circular needles, but I'm not completely knitting in the round because of the intarsia. The yarn isn't in the right place. If you keep going in a circle, you get to the next color, but the yarn is at the opposite end of it. So I'm just going around this way and then back. So I am knitting and purling, no problem. And it's knitting up so quickly compared to my previous project, which I brought out. I have not modeled this yet for my audience. I'm waiting for one more person to tell me that she's finished, and then we're all going to get together and model them. I think she might be watching, but this was on 2.25 millimeter or US 1 needle, and there were about 450 stitches in each round. So this took me a full 4.5 months. It was so much work. So I'm really happy to be on a larger needle, heavier yarn. This is like maybe 3 weeks worth, and I'm halfway done the sweater. So quite a difference. I'm really happy. So I noticed that a lot of you are knitting on straight needles, and I wanted to steer the conversation in that direction a little bit. Let's go around again. Tell me if you use both straight and circular, or if you're exclusively straight because you never knit anything in the round. I'm curious to know where each of you are at. So let's go in the same order.
Well, all straight needles, no circular. I've tried it once or twice, and I always end up making so many mistakes, and the tension is completely off. And I just, as you said, Sophie, I don't mind making the seams and being able to change the garment and fit it properly. So I just gave up.
It's so funny you say that, Erika. I'm the total opposite. When I started knitting, I learned on straight needles, and now I do nothing but circular, because I do projects that involve knitting in the round, and also a lot of vintage where I knit flat and then seam together. But to me, I like my circular needles because they work for both. But you can't knit in the round with a straight needle, or a flat needle. No. So I love circular. I always do circular.
I might have to use circular needles because I have a bit of a conundrum here. How to make the neckline for my, hope my sister is not watching this.
Well, there's always
her present.
There's always DPNs.
Yes.
I mean, that's what they did once upon a time, before there were circular
to be able
needles.
To finish this, I think I need to face my fear and use circular needles, right?
My vote is circular needles over double pointed needles, like every time. Double pointed are not super fun in my opinion, but I recommend a circular for that.
Katy, you're on straight?
No, I work with circular needles. I've started with straight ones, but I think they are too heavy for the wrist. And if you knit for a longer time, then it is more strainful, and it's better to use these because you have less weight on your hands. So I usually knit the flat versions and seam everything together, but it's also the advantage that you can also work in rounds if you want to. And I prefer that very much to knitting with several needles, like when knitting socks or something. That's something I really hate and would love to avoid. But sometimes if you find a lovely pattern, then I go through it, but I really hate knitting with 4 or 5 needles or 6 needles or whatever.
Michelle?
Yeah, I generally do knit on straight needles. I did actually treat myself to some Knit Pro interchangeable knit, round, circular needles. But I think I was doing something really silly, because I think you have to tighten them up a certain way, don't you? And I wasn't tightening them up a certain way, so I'd be knitting on them, and then all of a sudden one of them had come unscrewed, and I'd start dropping stitches, and I just thought, oh no, these aren't working very well. And it wasn't until I was watching some other knitting podcast that I watched this woman sort of change her interchangeable circular needles, and I realised I wasn't doing it properly, when you have to put something through it and then to tighten it up, and I wasn't doing it properly. So I may go back to circular needles at some point, but I'm playing it safe on my straights.
Sara?
I usually knit on circular needles, but I don't always knit in rounds. I knit flat, even most of the time, even if it is sterile. I do Purl Row as well. So for me, it's the best way to see if a garment is really fitted. If you want a really fitted garment that looks good with the seaming does a lot for a garment, I think. So I usually knit flat, but with circular needles, because my arms get tired from the straight needles. But I do use double-pointed needles when I knit mittens, mostly, because I prefer that. I'm not that into, I really don't like magic loop. Just you have to stop, and that's why I use.
Close you down.
Yeah.
And Sophie? Circular needles. Most definitely. I've got the Knit Pro interchangeable needles, and I love them. Yeah, it's also because of the weight, partially because of the weight and injuring my elbows earlier this year. And also because I knit on trains, and if you've got giant needles poking out, it's a little bit tricky.
I would say that's one of my main reasons. But another reason is the cables. You can get cables that are long, or 2 shorter cables, or a long and a short, with a little connector piece. I'm able to try things on. Like if I'm knitting something in the round, I can just put in an extension of the cable. I don't have to slip off every stitch like I would if I was on a straight needle to get it onto scrap yarn so that I could try it on. So it really facilitates that. And for me, I have such a hard time with fit, and I'm so not good at it. I don't have a mannequin like some of you that I can test it out on. So I really became converted to circular needles. I haven't knit on straight needles in years at this point. I still have them. I have vintage ones from way back. I have the first pair of knitting needles from my childhood that I learned to knit on. I've shown them on this show. They're short turquoise plastic. They're a little bit flexible, size 6 US. I don't know what that is in millimeters, but like worsted weight, you would knit on those. I'll never part with them. They're just so sentimental to me. But circular, I'm just all over it. Even if I'm knitting something in pieces, knitting flat, I still want to do it on circulars. Yeah, you don't have all of that thing happening. I wish Siobhan was here, because she knits with a long needle under her arm, and she can't do circular at all. I mean, her whole method of knitting requires a straight needle, so she doesn't have the option, but the rest of us do have the option. And I'm perfectly fine usually with magic loop. I don't do socks, and I only made one pair of mittens, so it's not a big thing for me. Well, I forgot to say, I mean, I guess because it's only 3:30 in the afternoon here, but it is 5 o'clock somewhere. I forgot to say, everybody grab your drink and let's all say, like,
Orange.
cheers for happy
Cheers.
holidays.
Cheers.
Merry Christmas.
Oh,
Who was that?
it's my husband. He's so cheeky.
I don't see any men on the screen. So I wanted, since it's show and tell, I wanted to show you this. This was part of a set that was a wedding gift to me and my husband. It is authentic Art Deco. It belonged to my friend's grandparents, so it was used lovingly by them. There are a lot of chips. There's a beautiful decanter, which I can't show because it has a crack that's gotten worse over the years. But let me try and get myself bigger on the screen so you'll see a bigger image of this. Oops. How come I'm not there? I wonder why I'm seeing Sara on my screen and not me. I should see me. Can I spotlight? I don't know how to do this. Oh, well, hopefully you can see that the black is part of the glass. It's not just painted on. And then there are these engraved chevrons. It's really, really, I'm like so happy to have something that's authentic. Of course I have jewelry, but, and I'm drinking. I don't usually drink so much wine, champagne, but I pulled out like vintage bottle of amaretto. I thought this would be like a festive holiday thing. I didn't even know how to pour it. This morning I was trying to like open it and pry this off. And then I suddenly realized, okay, Billy, that doesn't come off. That's like a control so that you don't just pour out too much. So
Amaretto. I like amaretto biscuits with coffee.
I don't like amaretto flavored coffee. I don't like anything that's like flavory like that.
The biscuits, you know, the little Italian biscuits.
Right. Yes.
Amaretti.
What's everybody else drinking? What's their drink of choice today?
Orange.
Orange juice?
Orange juice with water.
Hot chocolate, because it's cold and late in the evening in Sweden.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
For me, it's a hot toddy. It's also late outside and dark, and it's hot lemon with a little bit of gin and cinnamon and cloves. So it
Sounds
fits
wonderful.
the winter season.
Ask for a recipe.
My husband's asking for the recipe.
I can provide.
Mine is an apricot brandy. Because it's also dark here and it's cold in the house because our heating is out, because our boiler is being moved into the attic.
No.
So we're freezing today.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's so lovely in New York. It hasn't really been cold yet at all. It's very strange.
Well, it's only just past noon for me, so I'm sipping on a coffee. Pretty boring. But I would just like to compliment everyone on all of your beautiful glasses. Our toast made me so happy seeing, I just had my boring mug, but everyone else had like a really, really beautiful glass. So that was a lovely moment. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I think Erika, you
Well,
didn't
we have it super warm here. I'm sitting next to our stove or fireplace, so it's super warm here. So I have a cold drink, like Coca-Cola, but it's a
I can't remember
Christmas
the last
class,
time I had
so
a Coke.
we're grading students right now, so I just needed something a bit energetic so I could have energy for this meeting.
I wanted to show you my latest acquisition. I belong to this group on Facebook that's all vintage lovers. And one of the people is a guy who has a vintage shop, and he's, I think, looking to retire. So he invited a bunch of us to all Zoom with him. And he had a friend of his modeling things, hats and gloves and all sorts of things, everything vintage. And people were just saying, I'll take that. I'll take it. And there was hardly ever any fighting. It was like a lot of respect for one another. The first person who said, I'm interested in that, everybody else backed off. So when he held up this necklace, I said, I'll take it. These are glass beads, and these very thin ones are also glass. I think they're glass. If they're not glass, they're something ceramic, but I'm pretty sure they're glass. This thing, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but when he showed this, I seem to be knitting more and more with green. Green used to be my least favorite color. I mean, maybe yellow was my least favorite, but yellow and green were both like not favorites of mine. All of a sudden, I'm finding this like renewed interest in green, especially like an avocado kind of green, not this, but something brighter. But anyway, here it is, a lot of green. And I thought this would be so nice with this.
Yeah, it
So
goes really
I
well.
couldn't resist. And I'm pretty sure my next project, well, not the next project, but the project after the next project is probably going to have green, because I want to match those shoes that I bought that have a little stripe of green, a little stripe of red, a little stripe of yellow on a brown background. So what are other people planning for 2022? What's, after you finish what you're working on now, do you have some idea of what's next?
I've got a few on
I
the
can
go.
start.
Yeah,
Do you
go on,
want to go,
Erika.
Michelle?
No,
No,
you
go ahead, Erika. Erika,
Do
go,
it in
let's,
order.
yeah,
Go on,
let's go in
Erika.
order.
Go on, Erika.
This one,
It's a cardigan.
yes, it is. And I'm not famous for making a lot of different patterns, but I'm trying to challenge myself. So this is the one, and it has a matching one for the husband later on if I want to, if he's nice, which he is, of course. No, so
Remember
that
the
is my
days when
next
people-
project.
Remember the days when everybody smoked? My parents both smoked once upon a time. Like the
Yeah,
Man
my parents did.
magazine.
Are we going in order?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
why
go
not?
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, after I finish sewing up the one I'm working on now, which is going to happen in like 2 minutes. I'm super excited. I just have one loose end to weave in, and then I'm done. I actually, before I begin a second one or a new project, I need to finish up this lovely, which is a 1940s cardigan. This was a pattern from A Stitch in Time, and it was called something like a cardigan with an unusual bubble stitch yoke. So it has a really cute little bubbly yoke. So it's all done, ready to go, except it needs buttons. So I'm going to be sewing the buttons onto this, and then no more vintage for a little bit, because I'm working on some Christmas presents for family that I have to finish up. A sweater dress for my mom, some Christmas ornaments, maybe a hat. We'll see.
And I'm planning on a winter sweater. with some little color work, 2 colors, and snowflakes and reindeers. But I'm not sure yet when to start because I've got a major project now to finish.
The yarn looks very pretty now that I'm seeing it a little more up close. It's gray, you said?
It's a kind of boucle yarn,
Boucle.
and it's multicolored. It's a gray, white, brown. It makes a nice mixture.
Yeah, it's great.
That probably look
Okay,
better
Michele.
with a bit more light on it, wouldn't it? Because it's dark, we can't see the true beauty of that yarn. Yeah, it's lovely. I bet in the daylight it probably looks quite stunning. It's just that you can't get the full sort of feel of it in the dark.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's lovely. I like texture. It's good that you've used boucle wool. I've never knitted with boucle wool. Something to look out for in the future because you can get some really nice texture with it, can't you?
Yeah. Although it's only garter stitch, and I think every multicolor yarn would have a similar effect.
Yeah, I like garter actually. Garter can look quite good for that texture.
What's up next, Michele, for you? 2020.
Well, actually, I was quite pleased with myself just recently because I had a project. You know, we've all had unfinished projects. Well, I had an unfinished cardigan that I hadn't completed. I had the body, but I hadn't done the collar or the 2 sleeves, and it was like a sort of. It looked like cable, but it wasn't cable. It had just had that effect. I haven't got a picture of it or anything, but I've actually decided I'm going to finish off this project. And it's really strange because I didn't pick it up for ages because I didn't enjoy it, but actually picking it up again, I got into the pattern of it and it wasn't as complex as I originally thought it was. Isn't that amazing? You know, so obviously I've moved on and maybe I've got a bit more confident with that kind of design. And I went back to it and I've actually finished it now. And all I need to do is knit a beret to go with it. So I was quite pleased with myself. So that's one finished project. And I have got other unfinished projects, but I do aim to complete. So that's what I want to do in 2022. Just
That
complete
sounds like a good plan.
project. Yes.
I did that this year. I finished up a lot of UFOs. I probably need to do a year-end roundup thing to show all the many things I finished. Okay, Sara.
As I said, I was starting a dress soon, but I'm also thinking about another dress. Earlier this year, I knitted a top from a vintage pattern. This picture is not, you can't really see much of it, but kind of. And I changed it a bit because I wanted to try the pattern to maybe make it a dress later on. So I changed it a bit and made with lace on, I don't know if you can see that, but has a necktie and lace, but I didn't like the yarn that I used. So I want to make another one in a good yarn and make it a dress. Slightly
Be smashing.
Probably, yeah. And I'm also working on my own designs at the moment. So there will be some mittens and probably sweaters and cardigans and these, I don't know if you can see, for example, some mittens, yeah.
Lovely. I've never knitted mittens. One day.
Yeah.
One day.
I've knitted many. They are my specialty actually, except cardigans.
Yeah, fair arm.
I need a pair for my son.
Yeah, I'd love to knit
That's a
fair arm.
scarf and a balaclava. I made him a whole set because I over-ordered yarn. That's another saga.
Yeah, I remember that one. I remember that, Dilly.
Okay. Sophie, tell us what's up next.
Well, this is going to take me a while yet because it's not just the sweater, it's also a belt. the matching scarf and a matching hat. So I think I'm going to be knitting on it a while, but I've also got a second project on the go. So I have to finish that as well, which is, don't know if you can see it. It's a two-tone lacy jumper.
Beautiful.
Stitchcraft. So I've got that one on the go as well. We're just having a little break at the moment while I'm working on this.
What's up next for me is another knit along. And I've been throwing out hints here and there to entice people. I probably won't divulge exactly what the pattern is until January. I really didn't think of what hint I wanted to give tonight.
I think I know what it is.
You do?
I think so. And I really want to knit it, but I'm busy.
Well, what makes you think that you know?
Well, because I've watched all your videos and you've given several hints. Plus, I saw you adding some things to your Ravelry, which made me suspicious.
Well, I have tried to be very discreet so that I'm not sure if it's in my Ravelry favorites or not. At the risk of spoiling it for the few people who are watching, tell me what you think it is, and I'll try not to react.
Should I really? Do you really?
Because I bet you're wrong, but go ahead.
I think it's the Schiaparelli tie jumper. I like
So you're going to have to wait to see if that is correct, because my lips are sealed. So I didn't give a hint. Yes, it is by a famous designer, historically famous designer. So yeah, maybe some people will get excited about joining in on that. I had already mentioned that it's 2 colors. So if you want to do this sort of surprise knit along, start to
Is it
think
on
about.
tiny needles though? Is it on tiny needles?
I think that the pattern is probably simple enough that you could adjust it to be the weight of yarn and needle size that suits you. I don't think it would be hard to resize this.
Depends on what it is. If it is that one,
you'll see.
It would have to be on tiny needles to get the right effect, wouldn't it? Like as to the original.
I don't know about that. I'm never going back to US 1s. I'm never going back to those 2.25s if I can help it. I mean, of course, the thing I did was fair out and there was charts and a lot of, color changing. This knit along is nothing like that at all. It's a lot easier. I mean, I like things that are challenging. The one I do after that will be in Tarja with 3 colors. So that'll be more challenging. There's a chart and the chart is pretty complicated. Like no 2 rows seem to be alike. I don't know how many rows before it repeats, but it's sort of a combination with sort of argyle looking. That's like very strange. That'll be later on after the knit along. So let me see. I think I'm running out of topics and we're coming up to the top of the hour. I was going to ask people to show us how they knit. I think people are always intrigued by the style of knitting. So let's make that the last thing. If everybody's willing to just go on camera showing us how you hold your needles and how you do a knit stitch or whatever. I mean, whatever stitch you're currently working on. Well, Sophie, you're on screen, so go ahead.
Well, I'm on reverse order. I'm on a Purl Row. Let's see if I can do this. I knit continental, so I'm just knitting like that. Sorry, it's a bit awkward because I'm holding my arms up quite high.
Right, I've had that experience too. So it looks very similar to how I knit. Interesting. Or purl, I should say. Okay. Sarah, you have something handy you want to show us?
Well, I just dropped a stitch, but I could do it anyway. I'm kind of in, it's a broken rib pattern. So at the moment I'm doing both purl and knit, and I'm a continental knitter as well. So that's what I do, and I'm quite fast.
Very
That's
fast.
why I need to knit dresses.
Wow. Thank you. I'm not looking at the list of names. Michelle, are you next? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can see. I mean, I'm left-handed and I'm not a fast knitter. I'm just, you know, I don't do continental. I'm literally just, you know, like I say, I'm not fast. I'm not super, but I love it.
Okay, that was good. I mean, I think it's very interesting to see how different people, it's as
Yeah.
different as how we all sign our names. It's fascinating to me. Yes, Katy, thanks.
Okay, I think I'm a continental knitter. This is a Purl Row.
Yeah, interesting. Like your finger that you're holding up is
Yeah.
not really, it's there, but it's not really involved.
Yeah, this one.
Interesting. It's so interesting. I love it. I love seeing it. Okay, now I think it's Jessie.
I don't have anything that all of my knitting's in another room. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're excused.
Next time, I promise. But I'm also a lefty, though I started with continental knitting and I still do it. I was like, oh, maybe I should look up how to knit left-handed, but the whole thing felt so foreign for both hands that I just went with it.
Same here. I knit right-handed. I don't knit left-handed at all.
I don't get that whole thing of like left-handed knitting. I don't really understand that. I'd like to see what that is. I'm not sure I know what that is, because to me, both hands are involved. So if you're good with your left hand, then good, be good with your left hand.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I
I'm
think it's
managing the yarn.
crochet.
I'm right-handed, but I'm managing the yarn in my left hand because I'm a continental knitter.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that my right hand is doing is accurately inserting the needle. So maybe for a left-handed person, they would have more control if they could put the left-handed needle into the right-handed needle. I just can't even imagine. That would be interesting to see somebody
think it's
doing
what
a
you
mirror
use,
image of what I'm doing.
But you're right,
Sorry?
both hands do so much that it's kind of just 6 one, half a dozen the other. Like both of them are having to do a lot of special manual dexterity work.
Yeah, I wonder whether it does slow you down though by being left-handed. I don't know. It depends on how your brain works, isn't it?
I can't
I've never been able
imagine.
to have that continental.
I can't imagine that that's a factor. I mean, you do what you do and you do it with the speed that you do it. And if your left hand is good, okay, so that part of the activity should go faster, I would think.
Yeah.
All right, let's see how Erika knits. I haven't seen her for a while. Erika, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm
Oh,
here.
good,
I'm
good.
looking at all of you. Okay, so, well, there's nothing new here. I knit continental. I'm doing ribbing, so it's both right now. Not wanting to lose. So, nothing special here.
Oh, I wonder if I'm able to show mine. I have shown my knitting before, but just for all of you to be able to see, I should have been better prepared. Let me untangle. Does everybody use these bobbins when they do intarsia, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I do use.
Those are like, for me, these are 40 years old. These are like practically antique.
I haven't found any like that. I do need those.
Oops, well, one just rolled all the way down to the floor. So I'm on a Purl Row. Here's my purl, if you can see it. I would be faster if my arms weren't up in the air. Can you see? Oops.
What the?
But my finger moves around a lot, unlike Katy. Wow.
Yeah, mine does too.
It's different when I'm doing a knit stitch, but oh, I was going to ask another question too about the tools. Like I mentioned, these are quite old. Are people using vintage tools? Are you using vintage needles, vintage crochet hooks, vintage? I don't know. We don't have a lot of tools. Everything that I use is handed down to me from somebody old, I think. I have just a couple crochet hooks. They're the skinny little old-fashioned metal ones. My darning needles are old. They're not the modern ones that have that little crook at the bottom. My bobbins are obviously old. My scissors are old. I don't know, like, does anybody have anything that?
Well, a lot of my needles are vintage. Like, so they've got the other sizing. They're not millimeter. They've got like the original sizes that go with the actual vintage patterns.
And what material are they?
They are metal, a lot of them, but I have got some plastic ones, some really old ones. But a lot of them I pick up from like what you'd call thrift shops.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I've accumulated quite a few. I've probably got too many, but sometimes if I've got two projects on the go using the same size needle, then that's where having plenty of needles comes in handy.
My mother-in-law has a huge sewing box, an antique sewing box filled with knitting needles, dozens and dozens of pairs. I never saw so many needles outside of a yarn shop. And I think a lot of them are metal, but they're all straight. I don't think she ever knit with circulars. She doesn't knit anymore. She's a good knitter.
I have collected some wool holders, you know, like the Bakelite ones. I've got quite a few of those. I'm waiting to get like a nice cabinet so I can put them all in. But at the moment, some are in storage and some are on my shelf. And, you know, my husband broke one once. I was quite, he broke one. It fell off the shelf when he was dusting. And he didn't tell me. It wasn't till I found it. I went, what's happened to this?
Oh.
I wasn't very happy. But yes, but luckily I've got quite a few. But I have used them before. They're quite nice to use. Like you put them on your wrist and you put like your little yarn ball in there. But because they're quite fragile, I don't really want to use them at the moment because you could break it and they're collectible. So,
Erika, how about you?
All my needles are from my grandmother. So old ones.
Metal also?
Metal and some are plastic.
Mm.
Really tiny ones.
I don't see that tip in the United States. I wonder, there must be different needles, obviously, in Europe. The ones that I've seen are flat, perpendicular to the needle, as opposed to flat in that way. That's cute. Jessie? Circulars, but anything vintage?
No, nothing at all. I'm a self-taught internet knitter of the new age. So I have all the tools I bought have just been from modern companies. Yeah, nothing exciting there.
Well, I mean, it's okay. It's not exciting or not exciting. It's just, you know, I'm curious, interested. Sometimes surprises come out. Katy?
I usually knit on the knitting needles I got from my mother. So they are 30, 40 years old. And I've got a couple of vintage ones that are from wood and just for collection, or if we do some kind of living history events, then it would look nice with the original needles. But I actually have something here I've seen in a 1930s knitting magazine for colorways to use different yarns. And I want to ask if any one of you has already tried them out. I haven't, but I would be very interested if they really work.
It fits on the tip of your finger. Is that it? And
Yeah.
it carries the
Yeah.
different yarns in it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen things that are a ring, but I haven't seen anything that goes on the tip like that.
Hmm.
Which is great for you because your finger's way up there.
Yeah.
It's perfect for you.
Yeah. That would be like this, and you can.
So how many colors is that? 4 or 5?
Four
Four.
colors.
Well, this had 9 colors.
Oh, no.
But only 2 at a time on any given row.
Okay.
Who did I miss? Is that everybody?
No, I didn't say. Yeah, I don't
Oh.
have many. I have a few. Yeah, okay. I have many old knitting needles, but I'm not using them since I'm mostly use this one. But I actually sometimes use the straight needles, and that's when I knit intarsia. I forgot to mention that, because if you knit in a round, or if you knit back and forth, it gets all tangled up. Even if you use the bobbins, it gets all tangled up. But if you have a straight needle, it stays very. It's very clear. You can put them away, that they're hanging in the right order. So that's when I use them, the old knitting needles. And then I have just some scissors from my grandmother and some yarn as well.
I think I'm a very nostalgic person, so I think it's very endearing to be able to have things from our ancestors or even people who we don't know. It just brings the past into the present and the future. I don't know. To me, there's something very romantic about that, I guess. And on that happy note, I'm going to say, have a wonderful holiday, everyone. I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Thank you, as always, for joining me. So glad that you could be here, and I hope that I'll see you sometime, maybe mid-2022. We'll do this again. And until then, happy knitting, happy holidays. Sophie, I'm going to see you on my knit along, it sounds like. Possibly.
I meant bow, not tie, by the way. I meant bow. I got tie and bow mixed up, the words.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. My lips are sealed until January, when you'll find out.
Can't wait.
All right, everybody, take good care.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye. Bye.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Yeah, Merry Christmas.